we can say system .out.print f. Let's use print f. And then let's create a format string first. Let's start with division, right? In a placeholder percentage d, just division placeholder, quarter, and another placeholder for the quarter, and then the total sales. Actually, it's just going to be quarter because we are only dealing with quarters here. The total sales for the quarter. So let's just deal with the quarter here. So quarter, and then a placeholder. So let's see. This quarter index is keeping track of our quarter index, right? So we know that when the quarter index is 0, we're dealing with the first quarter. When the quarter index is 1, we're dealing with the second quarter, right? And so for the quarter, we can just use the quarter index, but we have to add 1 to it. And so quarter this, right? We have to specify the total sales for it. That's after it's calculated the total sales though. And so we store the total sales in an array and we display it, right? We are going to actually need that array, I think, for other questions. It looks like it. So it's good we are storing it in an array. But let's also display because the question wants to see it. So this is going to display the quarter, but we need to provide or display the total quarterly sales for that particular quarter. And so we have the array. We've stored the value in there. We can refer to the name of the array, but that's just the value. Let's specify a placeholder for it. It's going to be a dollar amount, right? And so percentage f to represent a floating point value, 0.2 for 2 decimal places, a comma where necessary, and a dollar sign in front of it. So this is a placeholder I need to specify a value for, and that value is going to be basically total sales array, that particular slot, right? Actually, it's going to be a one-dimensional array, sorry. So the total quarterly sales array and the particular slot, which is our quarter index, which we know we are using to refer to it. And so we start basically with the particular quarter. We calculate the total sales for the particular quarter. We store the total sales for that particular quarter, right? All referring to the quarter index. We're using the quarter index to keep track of that particular quarter. And then we are displaying the total sales for that particular quarter. And then we move on to the next quarter, right? And display and basically calculate the total sales for that particular quarter as well. But when we move on to the next quarter, right, total sales will still have the value of the previous we'll still have the value of the total sales for the previous quarter. And so we have to reset it to 1 each time we start another quarter. So this is where we start another quarter, and this is where we go through basically all the divisions and calculate the quarters. So before we start calculating total sales for a quarter, for a new quarter, we have to set the variable total quarterly sales, because that's keeping track of our total sales, right, to 0. So set that to 0, which means that, let's just create a space here, which means that over here we don't have to set it to 0. We can just declare the variable and set it to 0 here, calculate the total sales for that particular quarter. And when we start another quarter, right, we set it to 0, calculate the total sales for that particular quarter, and so on and so forth. This looks good to me. I don't think there are any problems. Let's just compile and see what happens. So compile. All right, we have some problems here. Let's see. Cannot find symbol variable quarter index. How did I name this? So int quarter index is equal to 0. As long as the quarter index is less than company info. It cannot find the symbol quarter index. Let's see. Oh, okay, so the spelling is not correct. Over here I named it as QUA. Over here I named it as QUAR. So I need to make sure that's correct. Right, quarter. I need to make sure it's correct. Compile this. I think I did the same thing. I cannot find symbol quarter index. I think I did the same thing here. I'm missing an R here. Compile. Okay, and now it's working. So let's see what's happening here. So over here we've called the enter sales figures, list sales figures. We need to also call the calculate total quarterly sales, right? And we said that the calculate total quarterly sales needs 2 arguments. First of all, the array, the 2-dimensional array, which we have here as company info. So we are passing in that as company info. And then we also need the number of quarters, which we have here as number of quarters. We can pass in that here too. And it's going to calculate the total sales for each quarter and then display it to us, right? So let's see if that works. Compile. Oops, we have an error. Semicolon. I'm missing my semicolon, so I just put that there. Compile. Something else. Let's see what it said. Cannot find symbol. Variable. Calculate total quarterly sales. Let's see. Calculate total quarterly sales. What did I do here? Okay, over here I'm supposed to pass in the array. I don't know. I'm sure some of you saw it, if not all of you. Over here I need to pass an array. We define the method over here to accept an array as a first argument, and so I meant to pass in the company info, okay, the array, but I think I had the name of the method pasted. Copied. So, and I pasted that. So okay, so now I'm going to pass in the name of the array, and that should fix it. So compile. Okay, run this. Let's see what happens. All right, so just enter some random values. All right, so it says quarter one. We just need to align this correctly, but let's see if it works. Quarter one, it's $7, right? So that means quarter one, 4 plus 3 is 7. That's true. Quarter two is 5 plus 4, which is $9. That's true. And then 6 plus 1 is $7 for quarter three. That's true. Now let's just display it so it lines up correctly. So in the calculate total quarterly sales, after we display the total sales, let's end it with a new line character here. So once you display the values, end it with a new line character, meaning a \n is also another special escape sequence. So anytime a / is typed, an escape sequence or one of the special escape characters follows it. And if a character here is a special escape character, then it does what it does. Like an n in this case, so \n together create a new line character, meaning it moves the position from where it's at the moment to the next line, and anything that comes after that, this new line character, anything from here going will be displayed on the next line, right? So this will basically create, after displaying the total quarterly sales for each particular quarter, will move the position from where it's at to the next line, and anything that comes after this new line will be displayed from that next line going. So this will basically, in essence, create a line break. So compile this, run it, enter some random values. Okay, so now it's looking a bit good. I'll just add another line break before that, and then so quarter one we have a total of 6, quarter two we have a total of 13, and then quarter three we have a total of 9. So it looks like it's working. We still have our differences and everything is looking good. All right, so let's just add the new line, right? All right, so before everything, let's see. Before everything, so this is the loop, right? That is basically displaying or calculating our total quarterly sales, and then displaying our values to us. Before all that, let's create a line break. Remember the system.out .println statement, the empty one, and that's going to basically create a line break. So let's try that, see if that works. Some random values. Okay, so that's good. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. All right, so the company's increase or decrease. So we have phase this again. The company's increase or decrease from the previous quarter. I saw this too, and then I guess the only way I thought of the same idea. And so let's do that. So let's see, the company's increase or decrease from the previous quarter. This will not be displayed for the first quarter, so it's going to be the same thing. So I'm guessing it's dealing with these values here, right? How much did it increase from the previous quarter here? Okay, between this and this, how much did it increase? And between this and this, how much did it increase or decrease? Basically, increase or decrease. And it said this will not be displayed for the first quarter, so the first quarter will have a difference of 0. So let's use the same idea and let's calculate the differences for the quarters, right? And so since we have the method that's doing that for us, we can just work in that. We can work here. And so let's create the variable difference. It's going to be a double. It's going to be the same idea as the other one. Set it to 0, right? And then let's just pull this open so we can refer to it. All right, so let's see. So this is where basically we are displaying the quarters, right? This is where we're doing that. difference is 0, right? We want basically just one second, just want to think through this a bit. Okay, so quarter one, $10. Okay, so over here we're dealing with a quarter index, right? And so we want to basically any quarter index, anything that has a quarter index of 0, we don't want to calculate any difference for. We want to calculate anything or any quarter that has an index of 1 or above. So any quarter that has an index of 0, which is basically the first quarter, we don't want to calculate anything for it because we know we have nothing to compare with, right? But as soon as we have anything that has a quarter index of 1 or above, which means this and this, basically these two and above, right? Then we want to calculate the difference, right? So let's create an if statement somewhere around here before we display the value. Before we display the value over here, let's create an if statement and say that if the quarter index is greater than or equal to 1, then what we want to do is calculate the difference. And so in that case, then the difference is going to be equal to, now we have our total quarterly sales array, and that's the values we're going to deal with, right? This same index is what we are using to refer to the total quarterly index, basically manipulated in this whole method. So the difference is going to be the particular or the current value in the total sales array. So in the total quarterly sales array, the current value, I'm going to copy the name of the array. The current value, which is the particular quarter index, minus the previous value, which is the same name of the array, but the previous value, which will have an index of one less than the current value. So that's going to be the difference. And then we want to display the difference here. So the quarter number here, this is the amount. Before the new line, let's create a parenthesis, two parentheses here, right? And then in the parentheses, we want to basically provide the difference. The difference is a double amount, so I'm going to create a floating point placeholder %f. We don't want to, I want to round it to 2 decimal places, so I'll do that. And I don't want commas where necessary, all right? And I don't want a $sign in front of it. I'll just keep it this way. And so I have another floating point placeholder here. I need a value to replace it. Let's just break this line here into 2 after the comma here. And then the next argument that's going to replace this difference is the difference. The next argument there that's going to replace this placeholder here is going to be the difference. So difference here. Now let's try this and see. Run. Let's type in some random values. Okay, so let's see if it's working. All right, so it looks like it's working. So because when we started from the quarter, right, we had nothing to compare with. It's 0. When you look at the question, it says the company's increase or decrease, right, from the previous quarter. This will not be displayed for the first quarter. So because we don't have anything to display for the first quarter, I have it set to 0. Now we can write code to not display this at all, but it's fine since it's 0. We can tell from that too. Now it jumped from 8 to 11, which is a $3 jump, and that's why we have a 3 here, right? And it's a positive number. And it jumped from 11 to 14, which is a $3 jump here also. That's why we have the differences. So differences are calculating here correctly. We can see 5 to 4 is a -1 here, and it's not calculating for the first values, for the first value of here. That's good. Let's try some other numbers and see if it's working. So 56, 3, 1, 78, 34, 23. Okay, so let's see. Looks like it's working. So over here, jump from 56 to 3. That's a 53. It went down 53. And from 3 to 1 went down 2. 78 to 34 minus 44. 34 to 23 dropped 11. Over here we have 0, nothing to compare with, but from 134 to 37 it dropped 97, right? And then from 37 to 24 it dropped 13. So look like it's working. That's why we're seeing minus and pluses. And so that's what I understand by this. I think that's what it wants. the company's increase or decrease from the previous quarter, right? Okay, so we have that done. Let's just do the last two. We're almost done. All right, so the average sales for all divisions that quarter. The average sales for all divisions that quarter. Let's see what it wants. The average sales for all divisions that quarter. Okay. Average sales for all divisions that quarter, which means that we are basically, because the question over here said that the program should display the following data for each quarter, right? So over here, the average sales for all divisions that quarter, which that will mean that we take quarter one, and then we sum up the number, basically the total sales for quarter one divided by how many divisions there are, right? And so it makes sense because over here we have an array that's returned. Well, it's not returning it yet. We have an array. We have a method over here that has the total quarterly sales stored in it, which is good for us because all we have to do is divide the total quarterly sales for each quarter, right? Divide by the number of divisions, right? So let's see. Let's create a method for that. All right, so let's just copy one of these. Or let's just create a method for that. It's going to be a public static void. All right, it's not going to return anything. And then I'll call it calculate average quarterly sales. Right, and then let's just do that. Well, it's going to need, right, let's see, calculate the average quarterly sales. So it's first of all, it's going to need the array. It's going to need this array. This in this method, the calculate quarterly sales. It's going to need the array because that array contains the quarterly sales for each quarter. And so I'm going to create this in such a way that it has that. So I'm going to create it in such a way that it's going to be given this array. Okay, once this method is called, we have the array here. Let's go ahead, after displaying the values from it, let's also go ahead and return it, right? So we can use it. Let's return it. So we have this array here. After everything is done, this is the nested loop here, right? This is the end of it. And so after all of it, let's go ahead and return the name, the array, which is total quarterly sales array. Let's return it. If we're returning it, then we need to set the return type of that array, of that method to double array, because this is a double array. So change it from a void to a double array. It's a one-dimensional array. All right, so that means that when we call this calculate total quarterly sales, it's returning this total quarterly sales, right? And so I need a variable, or basically a variable that can store that array. So basically a reference variable that can store that array. And so let's do that. I'm going to create an array. It's going to be a double one-dimensional array. I'm going to call it total quarterly sales. It doesn't matter if it has the same name as this. Well, actually, it doesn't even have the same name. This is total quarterly sales array. I'm going to call this as total quarterly sales. All right. So it doesn't matter because they are different names, so it doesn't even matter. All right. So now this variable, we know when we call this method, is returning the total quarterly sales array. And so this variable here, this variable here, is going to store that array. This reference variable is going to store that array. So total quarterly sales is going to be equal to the array, this array that's returned, and it's going to be stored here. Which means that now we have access to the array that we can provide to this calculate quarterly sales, calculate average quarterly sales. So let's define it in such a way that it's going to first of all need the quarterly sales. Right, I'm going to give it the same name. Well, it's going to be an array, right? So let's define it properly. it's going to be a double one-dimensional array. I'm going to give it a name of total quarterly sales. It doesn't matter if these two have the same names. The scope of this is within this calculate average quarterly sales method, and then the scope of this is within this main method, right? So it doesn't matter if they're the same. Okay, so calculate average quarterly sales. What we want to do is we just want to display it, right? So we need a loop to go through this array. Now this is just going to be one loop. It's not going to be a nested loop because this is just a one-dimensional array. And so I'm going to create a for loop for that. Let's see. So for int, since it's a it's a quarterly sales array, then let's create an index to represent each particular quarterly each particular total, each particular quarterly sales, right? So for int quarterly sales index, let's set it to 0, and as long as the quarterly sales, as long as the quarterly sales index is less than now the length of this, the total quarterly sales dot length, then do what's in the loop, and before we come back up to check to see if quarterly sales index is less than the total quarterly sales dot length, we add 1 to quarterly sales. We add 1 to quarterly sales index. Okay, that's what I meant. All right, so this loop is basically going to go through this array here. What we want to do is just display the particular quarterly sales, right, by how many divisions there are. Okay, so let's see something here. Let's see if the calculation first of all is correct. So the question said the average sales for all divisions that quarter. How I'm thinking about this is average sales is going to be, let's say, these two values added, right? These two values added, which we have already. We have the sum already in this in the array here. We have the sum in the total quarterly sales, and so all we have to do is basically divide by the number of divisions, right? And we have the number of divisions here, so we can actually, when we call it, we can actually pass it into this, which means we can go ahead and define a parameter. It's going to be number of divisions. It's going to be an integer. I'm going to call it number of divisions, right? And so each time what we want to do is we want to system.out.print f. Let's specify a format. So I want to basically display, basically quarter by quarter, right? So we say basically something like this, right? Quarter percentage d is going to refer to that particular quarter, and then we now have to provide that average, right? And so that average is going to be a double value, so I'm going to create a placeholder for it, percentage f. It's going to be an amount, right? So a dollar amount, so 0.2, comments where necessary, and a dollar sign in front of it. Now I need to specify the values that are going to replace these placeholders respectively. And so the first one is percentage d, which is our particular quarter. We can use the quarterly sales index for it, because actually when you think about it, there are only 4 if there are 4 quarters, or there are 5 quarters or 6 quarters, this array will have the number of quarters. The number of elements in that array will represent the number of quarters, right? Because it's holding the total sales for each particular quarter. And so this index, okay, will refer to the particular quarter that we are on. And so the particular quarter over here, we know that the index is always 1 less than the particular quarter. So index 0 means we are dealing with the first quarter, and so we have to add 1 to it, just like the other ones too. So quarterly sales index plus 1, that's going to be our quarter. Now the second argument is going to be for the average itself, and the average we know is going to be the total sales for the particular quarter, which we will have stored in this array, total quarterly sales array, right? So total quarterly sales, the particular index, which we are using the quarterly sales index to represent it, That's just going to access the value. Let's just break this here for now. All right, that's just going to access the value of the total sales for that particular quarter. Now we have to divide by the number of divisions, which we have passed here. Okay, by whoever calls this method, which we're going to have passed here by whoever calls this method. And so we can divide the particular total sales of that the total sales for that particular column by the number of divisions, which is going to be passed here. We're just going to display that, and then let's have a new line character \n after displaying the average for each particular quarter. And since there's no line break after this, let's add a line break before all that is printed. So system.out.println, like this. So this works. Compile this. We have a couple of errors. Let's fix that. Okay, so cannot find symbol double. Okay, I think this I meant to type in double. I forgot the L. Compile this. Another one, cannot find symbol method printf. With printf. Okay, so this is supposed to be printf. I forgot the T. I think I was rushing it. Compile this and it's fine now. Let's see if it works. And let's see if the calculations are even correct. Let's type in some random values. Oops, I type in a number here somewhere. When I compile this, I should have an error because I type in a number somewhere. Where? Okay, here. We'll type in a number somewhere. All right, so compile this. Let's try again. Type in some random values. Okay. Well, nothing's happening because we have defined a method over here, calculate average quarterly sales, but we haven't called it. So I'm going to call it over here. Calculate average quarterly sales. Average quarterly sales, we define it in such a way that it's going to need a total quarterly sales array. Now we know this method returns that, so we have it here in total quarterly sales. We have a variable that stores that. So this will store that array. We can pass this array to this method, right? And then this method also needs the number of divisions, which we have here as number of divisions, so we can pass that as well. Okay, compile this, semicolon, compile it, run. Now let's try and see what happens. So random values. Okay, so it should be correct, right? So over here we have, so in this scenario we have 2 divisions and 3 quarters, right? So 2 divisions, 3 quarters. So over here for quarter 1, right, we have 5 plus 7, which is 12, divided by 2 divisions. So 12 divided by 2 gives us 6. So that's correct. Over here we have 4 plus 5, which gives us 9, right? Divided by 2, that gives us 4.5 or $4.50. This is correct. And then over here 6 plus 8 gives us 14. 14 divided by 2 gives us 7. So the average is also correct. So that's good. All right. Now you can give these labels if you want, but at least you know that these values represent the average and these values represent the total quarterly sales. All right, so far so good. I think the last thing we have to do is the division with the highest sales for that quarter, right? So for this one, the division with the highest sales for that quarter. Let's see. So I think so basically what we have to do is go through this division. Actually, no. So we have to go through all the quarters and then basically figure out which one is the highest and then map it to what division, right? And then we go to the quarter 2, go through all the values, see which one is highest and see what division had the highest. So that's what we have to do. So we have an array, this array here, that is going through so basically when we're calculating the total quarterly sales here, we had a loop which started from the quarters. Remember, we flipped it. We flipped the structure of the loop. Normally we were going through it horizontally. This time around we had a loop over here that was going through it vertically. And so that's the idea that's the kind of loop we're going to basically use. All right, this loop here to basically go through the loop this way, line by line here, and then display, or basically find out which out of these numbers which one is the highest, and then map it to the particular division. So let's create a similar structure. Well, let's just first of all copy the entire method. We are going to change it to suit this particular one. This is an entire method. Copy it. All right. So before our main, so let's create the last method. Let's paste it, right? But don't worry. We're going to change it. So it's the division with the highest sales for that quarter, right? This is what I just pasted. So first of all, let's change a few things about it. We know it's going to be void. It's going to return void. It's going to return nothing. And then let's change the name to calculate or find highest sales. Let's just say find highest sales. Find highest sales. That's the name of it. Now find highest sales is going to need a company for double two-dimensional array, right? It's going to need that. All right, that's it. So we define that. We're not going to need all of the stuff. We just need a structure to go through the array. So all the stuff goes away. All the stuff goes away. We just need a structure to go through the array. So all of this goes away. Oops. This as well. The return goes, and then this as well goes. We just need the loop structure to go through. Oops, go through the array. Let's see. So this is for the method. This is the loop here. So it's looking good so far. All right. So this is the loop here. Outer loop, inner loop. All right, so this is what we're going to do. So anytime, so this is the inner loop is basically what's going through the. This inner loop is what's going through the array this way. This inner loop over here. And so anytime you're using this inner loop to go through the arrays this way, let's create a variable that's going to set basically the highest sales, right? Let's just create a variable outside of the loop in the same method, in the find highest sales method. Sales, it's a double amount, right? Highest sales, double amount or double value. Let's create a variable. Let's call it highest sales. Let's set it to 0. Actually, let's not set it 0. Let's just create a variable highest sales. And before we start going through this, right? Before we start going through all the values, all the sales for all the divisions in a particular quarter, let's set highest sales to be equal to, let's set highest sale to be equal to company info, the particular division and the particular quarter. So division index, and then quarter index. Right. So basically we set, actually let's see here. So let me just go through this just for a while to have an idea of it. All right, so let's do away with this. Let's set it to 0 like we did before. So let's set it to 0. So basically the idea is let's set highest sale, right? Highest sale to be equal to 0. And anytime we find something greater than the 0, we replace it. We replace the highest sale with that value. We know there's 2 loops, okay? The nested loop is going through each of these values, okay, one by one, but it's going through vertically. So starting from the top here down, and then move here from the top here down, move here from the top here down. And so we've set highest sale to 0. And so while we are going through it, this inner loop is basically what's going through it down here before the outer loop starts, and then we jump to the next quarter and move through it down again. So once we get into the inner loop here, we want to check if at any time the particular index in the particular division in the particular quarter, the value there is greater than what's stored in highest sale, then let's replace what's stored in highest sale. So if at any time company info, the particular index or the particular division index in a particular quarter, right? So division index and then quarter index. If at any time that value there is greater than what's stored in highest sale, then let's replace the value of highest sale to that value. Highest sale then is going to be equal to what's stored in a particular division in a particular quarter. A semicolon, right? And so before we start or we go to the next column, right, we want to display what was the highest, what division, right, was the highest, and what was the amount. Which will also, so now we only have the highest sale. We don't have any variable to keep track of that division. So next to this variable, let's create another value. It's going to be an integer, a value that's going to keep track of the particular division, okay, that had the highest sales index. And so it's going to be an integer. I'm going to call it highest sale division, or let's just say highest division. Highest sale division index. Set it to 0 initially. And so over here, let's see. You know, over here, so before anything at all, right? Let's set highest sale. We'll come to this. For now, just leave this at 0. Okay, I don't want to confuse you. Let's leave this at 0. We'll come to this. And so, if we find the highest sale, right? We find the highest sale. This particular division index and the particular quarter index will keep track of the particular division and the particular quarter, right? And so we know that this index will keep track of our division index for us. We will know the particular division from this particular value, division index here. And so highest sale is going to be equal to company info, right? The particular value stored in this slot. And then the highest sale division, the variable we've created here, to know the index of the particular division that got this highest sale. That's going to be equal to the division index. But we know that the division index is always, it's always just the index, right? If the index is 0, then we're referring to the first division. If the division index is 1, then we're referring to the second division. And so we have to add 1 to it, just so we can know. Well, you know what? We have to add 1 to it so that we can display it, right? But for now, since we store this as highest sale division index, let's just store it in here. Or better still, it may not be necessary because we have it stored in division index already. So let's just hold on this variable for now. We'll come back to it if we need it. I know this is this may confuse you, but just try to follow along and we'll work through this. Okay, we're almost done. I just hope you get the idea. So we have the value here that's storing the highest sale. And so before we go to the next column here, right, before we go to the next quarter and start calculating the highest, let's display the information. And let's say that we'll have the highest sale here, right? And we'll have actually we needed that value. So I'm going to undo here. We needed the highest sale division index. We needed it. Okay, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm coming back. So I just did undo. Use undo. We need a high sale division index. Set it to 0. Okay. And high sale division index. So anytime we find a highest sale, the division index will keep track of the particular division's index. But for now, I'm just going to store the division index in high sale division index here. So this is going to store the raw value, the raw division index. So if it's 0, it's 0. If it's 1, it's 1. And before we go to the next quarter, right, after we've calculated or we've figured out which particular division had the highest index, we have the highest sale, we have the division's index. Before we go to the next quarter or next column, let's display the information. So in this loop, before it goes back up to the next column, the outer loop, the next quarter, let's display the information, right? System.out.println. Let's use printf so we can format the values. So let's say this. Let's create a nice string here and say this. for quarter, right? For quarter, and then placeholder for that particular quarter, right? And a comma, division, and a placeholder for that particular division was the highest, or basically made the highest sale, and then the value, comma, the value here, I'm going to create a placeholder here. It's going to be a floating point value, so percentage F, rounded to 2 decimal places, commas where necessary. The comma goes before the 0.2, and then basically the comma goes before the position, which is 0.2, and a dollar sign where necessary. Now I have a couple of placeholders I need to basically put values for. The first one is going to be my quarter, right? And so we know that this quarter index is keeping track of that, but we know quarter index is just an index. And so if the index is 0, we are dealing with the first quarter. If it's 1, we are dealing with the second quarter. So we have to add 1 to it, so we know in a nice readable way the particular quarter we are on, not just the index. So that's just for the first argument, the first placeholder. The second placeholder is a division. I'm going to break this on 2 lines here. All right, just hit an enter. Okay, just hit an enter here. Move the C. All right, so I have a comma. Second argument is going to be this division. And now the division, right, we have the highest sale division index. And so when we found the sale, this highest sale division index was, we stored the particular division's index. We found a particular division's index that had the highest sale. And so we can display it and it will replace this. But if it's the highest sale division index, then it's just the index, right? So we have to add 1 to it, because if the highest sale division index is 0, then we're dealing with the division 1. If it's 1, then we're dealing with division 2. And so we add 1 to it, so it displays nice to us that, okay, this is the particular division and not just the index. So that's the second argument. The third argument is going to be the value itself, which we have here in highest sale. So highest sale, okay, let's just delete that. Highest sale here. And so now guess what? Before we go to the next quarter, we have to reset these values. So this is why I said we'll come back to this. So we don't even have to declare this, set it to 0. Over here, we just declare the variables, right? And before we start any quarter, we set the highest sale to 0, and then we set the highest sale division index also to 0. And then this loop basically figure out the highest sale, figure out the highest sale division index, use the value to display it to the user, and then we go to the next quarter, we set highest sale to 0, highest sale division to index to 0, we calculate new values for it again. If we don't reset it, then we are using the old values and we may get incorrect results. And so it looks like this will work. Now once we need a line break here, right? So \n, and then before all this is displayed in the method, let's create a line break also. System.out.println. Okay, so this is it. Compile it. Okay, we didn't have any errors, that's good. Now this is find highest sale. Right, we have to call it over here. So I've called it. It needs a couple of arguments. Find highest sales needs the 2-dimensional array, which we have here as company info. So I'm going to pass it here, right? And then let's compile this, run it, type in a couple of values. So okay, so for quarter 1, division 1, I typed it correctly. It reads weird, so let's just fix it. Division 1 made the highest sale. Okay, compile this, run again. Let's try again. Okay, so for quarter 1, right? So let's see, quarter 1, division 1 made the highest sale, $5, right? Which is true. For quarter 1, division 1 made the highest sale was $5. For quarter 2, division 1 made the highest sale, which is $4. That's correct. For quarter 3, division 1, right, made the highest sale, which is $67. Now these are all division 1, so let's use values that actually will display correctly. Now looks we are done, and so now we can set. I didn't want to type in lots of values for 6 divisions and 4 quarters, but now the question says we should actually create this for 6 divisions and 4 quarters. All we have to do is now is just change these values, 6 divisions and then 4 quarters, and that's it. And then that's going to basically adjust it. So now we're going to type in quite some numbers, right? So division 1, quarter 1. Now I'm going to type in a lot of numbers. Now we have to go through all 6 divisions, all quarters. Oops. Still going to work. Okay. Okay, so I think that the tabs are too much here. That's why this is happening. Okay, so let's just fix that before me. I just want to make sure this is correct. So over here, when we are displaying the list sales figures, let's remove one tab here and see if that helps. These are random values. Okay, so it's going off the screen over here. That's why it's displaying like that. But for the most part, we see the values, but it's going over it's going off the screen. So that's the problem. But for the most part, we are seeing the values here, right? I can try to close a space here, right? Just so. Okay, let's do that. I'm sorry, but I just want this to read well, so we can just compare the values. So this sales figures. Let's close this here. Hopefully that fixes it, right? Compile, run. I'll do this fast so that, oops. Okay, it didn't necessarily fix it, but it was kind of close. Division 1, quarter 4. It was kind of close. It's fine. We'll deal with it. Well, it's just continue on the next line. See, this is division 1. Just continue on the next line. This is just the difference. Okay, this is division 2. 6 divisions, 4 quarters. So let's see. So this is the total sales, right? We add 4, 4, 4 here. This is adding it all up. Right, so we have 12, we have 20, 6 plus 4, 10, 20 plus 10, that's 30. So that's correct. It's adding all these up, and this is for all 4 quarters. So that's good. And so this is the average, right? It's dividing 30 by how many divisions there are, which is 6, right? So 30 by 6 is 5. Over here, the same thing. Dividing 74 by how many divisions there are, and it's giving us the value here. And let's compare these and see if the numbers here are correct. So quarter 1. So for quarter 1, which division had the highest? I can see the highest is division 4, and it said here for quarter 1, division 4 made a highest sale of $8. For quarter 2, I can see that the highest is division 5, $45. So let's see. Division 5 made the highest sales, $45. For quarter 3, the highest is, well, it's 3 people, right? Or 3 divisions. But the way we designed it is I think it's going to use the first one or the last one, I believe. It said division 6, so you use the last one. Now we can work with this, but you get the idea. You can change this around to make sure it uses all 3 of them, or but you get the idea. It's using the last one. So with it's $6, right? And then for quarter 4, I think we also have, okay, $6 here. So that's division 6. Well, let's see. Yeah, division 6 made the highest sales for $6, so we can see that's also working. This is just not displaying right. I can try to fix it, right, by removing the tab. I think the tab is what's causing the error. So if you wanted to really fix it and it's bothering you, let's just try one last thing here. So division didn't really fix it, huh? So let's just close it. Let's remove just the tab here and just put a space. And let's remove the tab here as well and just put a space. Now that should definitely fix it, but it will be close together. That's the only difference. Run this. Let's try a bunch of numbers. Okay, so now you see this is now good. But the only thing is this space is now separating these values, so they are really close together, right? You can add some spaces and then or some tabs. So I'll take it back to the old one, but we can see this is working, and we've basically answered all the questions. That is, if these two questions, the differences, right, was what it was referring to. For example, this jump from 32 to 31, it lost 1 point. This jump from 31 to 34, it gained $3. 34 to 33, lost 1 point. Same for these, for the differences, what's in parentheses. All right, so this is it was a good program because I loved it, because it tested our knowledge of arrays to make sure that we understand it, and it's good. It was a bit rough, I know, but take your time and go through it and make sure you understand it. If you have any questions, please comments down below, and I'll do everything to respond to them. I know we kind of did this together. I read this in class when I was in class, getting to the end of my class, and I got the idea of how we're going to do it. So we're actually doing this together. Although I planned it in my head, most of it in my head, had an idea of it. And so I know part of it was like freestyling, I guess. But for the most part, we did it. And yeah, so take your time and go through it. And follow along, and you get it. Basically, we figure out how you know, or you understand how we figured it out to get to this point. Okay, so if you have any questions, comment down below. I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next video. All right, then, bye-bye. Let me just scroll through this, okay, gently, so that you have good grasp of all of it. Okay, so if you wanted a point where you want to see everything, then this is it. I'm taking my time to go scroll through it. You can just maybe pause through it, then you see everything. I know I'm going fast here, but yeah. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll do everything to respond to them. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.